the Mobile Workforce Podcast. Industry insights, construction perspective.
Hello, this is Mike Merrill. I am the host of the Mobile Workforce Podcast, and today we have an awesome conversation with Mr. Jim Welsh. Jim is a regional sales representative for Payroll for Construction, and Jim and I had a really nice conversation talking about what companies can do to get more prepared as they ramp up for the busy season that's coming. Now, I know a lot of construction companies out there have a lot of backlog. They're trying to get things in place, improve their systems, kind of sharpen the tools, so to speak. Jim gives some really good thoughts and ideas on how you can do that to be ready for that payroll and for those busy times a year that you're actually ramping up. So give this one a listen. I think you'll really enjoy it. Well, welcome, Jim. Great to have you on the call today. Looking forward to the conversation.
Thanks, Mike, for having me on the show today.
You bet. So I wanted to just start off right off the bat here. We're ramping up. Spring is almost here. Busy season for construction is coming. Companies are ramping up. What are some of the most important things that you think contractors can do to really prepare for the busy season?
So there's a lot. Obviously, there's many different, sides to construction, especially, I focus here on the payroll aspect of it. But so I'll keep my responses to that today we specialize here at Payroll for Construction in payroll and ramping up for that. Obviously, you talk to the maintenance guys and stuff, getting machinery ready to go again. There's a lot of stuff involved. But when it comes to payroll, look, this is a very up and down from an employee count industry. And for a lot, it is, seasonal, weather related. You guys out there in Utah, us here in Ohio, that weather impacts us. Whereas, you get into, your sunny Floridas, your California, maybe not so much there. But no matter where you're at, really, again, these are things that is just the ramp up comes and goes. And if you're stuck there doing payroll, you're kind of, you're kind of a pair with teenagers out there where you're waiting for the call and you just get told things last minute, where it's one of those things that you have to brace for that. So things I tell people to look at doing is just, this is the time of year where you've just got through year end, taxes, W-2s, all that stuff, where you get a very short window to really analyze your payroll and look back at some of the painful points of the previous year. Your reporting, what system are you using? I'm sure we'll get into talking technology, especially in this industry as we watch it grow. So having the right technology in place for sure. Meaning whether that's a payroll service like us or if that is a construction specific accounting system. So as you get more employees, of course, there's more time cards to enter. You guys know all about that stuff. So mobile technology, being able to say, hey, we need to put something in the field hands that allows that time to flow into the office, in a more timely fashion. So I would just have to say technology. The processes and procedures are going to differ per company. You got multi-state payroll. How that flows and works is going to be a little bit different than obviously somebody who's maybe working in a smaller area. So again, there's going to be these variables of owners out there bidding jobs, or as estimators, getting jobs awarded. You never know. In a perfect world, you have the same amount of jobs and employees, but that's just not how life is, especially not in this industry, where you're going to have those slow times where, hey, getting payroll done is pretty simplistic. I'm doing it for a handful of people, but as that ramps up, I deal with contractors that can go from 10 to 15 employees in those winter months, and you kind of get used to that, to ramping up to 50 to 100, 200 employees in the summer. Again, a lot of times that could be because of the weather and seasons. Other times, just the volume of work in the jobs you're getting awarded.
I think most companies will say that when they're busy, their hair's on fire, they're running around like they feel like they're herding cats. It's a bad time to implement new systems. So is that accurate in your opinion, or what systems are critical anytime you can get them in place?
100%. So I always say, when you're choosing new reporting software, time capture, payroll software, and it's like they say with having kids or buying your first house, there's never a perfect time. You know what I mean? It's one of those things where it's like, well, hey, we need this right now, but I just don't have time to do it. So that goes to your point of, yeah, hey, listen, in the summer months, a mobile app, a powerful payroll reporting software or service to automate that back-end reporting, that is the time you need it. More employees, more reporting, more time cards, all of that. It's the hardest time to do it. So I always tell people, look, it's got to be not just about the right fit, but about the right timing as well. Because like right now, this is our busiest time of year. And you think about it, and a lot of people want to go live January 1st. And I do deal with a lot of people towards the end of the year. Hey, that's the perfect time. And it is. It is a nice time. The year restarts. It's, easy for billing, for annual tracking of this stuff. So that stuff is good. But I also tell people, hey, if you're that contractor that towards, the end of October, you guys are still going at it, pretty hard, meaning whatever, the weather by you, the jobs just haven't stopped, the work's still coming in, maybe it's not the time to do it for January 1st. And that's where we do get a lot of these folks that are super successful this time of the year because they do catch, albeit maybe a very short period, a few weeks to a month, but they catch a bit of that breathing room where they get through the year end, they've got W-2s out, they can really analyze their current procedures and look for a product that could help them. And most importantly, not that just can help them, but they can implement it. That is key.
Yeah, and I think the other thing that's really common is companies will come to us and historically have done so and say, hey, we're looking at doing this next year. Well, then next year becomes the following year, Pretty soon it's been 5 or 6 years of next year's, and they never got around to it. And so the common feedback we hear later is, man, we should have done this a long time ago. And so it tells me that there's never a bad time to improve a process or to replace a manual or a dated system. But you also have to take into account that when you do get busy and you've got a lot of backlog and you just don't ever feel like you have any time for anything, you really just have to take a time out and just solve the problem, or at least start taking those steps as soon as it's on your mind and you recognize there's a need.
100%. And that's what I tell people too, meaning I always say, there's a right time, but it's not just going to magically appear. You got to kind of make that tough decision to say, hey, whether it's, hey, we're in busy season and we're just going to do this because we need it that bad, be a little bit more painful. But again, it's all for the greater good. Meaning any of these products you put in place, you got to keep in mind that there's going to be that little bit of a painful point there where it's, hey, I got to get this up and running. But once you do, it's, again, to streamline your time reporting, your payroll processes, all of those things where now moving forward, you can start looking at other areas of the business. Payroll, that time collection, it bogs down a ton of the business. And you get to the point of, do I hire more bodies, or do we look for more modern software and technology ways to do this? And people are just finding it's much more efficient and much, from both from cost and from a just receiving real-time data to invest into these mobile, these payroll services and reporting softwares that were designed for, again, not just anybody. You don't want that. Well, we have some construction clients or no, we got a construction client. No, all construction that are so focused in on what you do. And as your industry changes, they're changing with you. Those are the key things, because a product that works for you today, but isn't going to keep up with the future of what you're doing and your business is doing tomorrow, it's just, you're going to have to make that change again.
Yeah, that's a great point. Also, you coming from the payroll side of things, especially for construction, there are certainly cases where we have companies come to us frantically and say, we just got this huge audit, we're getting fined, there are investigations because of compliance issues, and not just the state of California, although there's a lot that happened there. What do you tell companies about getting those things in alignment as soon as possible, so it's not like trying to buy insurance after the accident, right?
Yeah, and that is the tough part. And Mike, to be honest, a lot of times I'm getting them in that situation too, where it's, didn't think we needed it, thought we had everything in place. So there are certain things that people do ask me, and as their payroll service, I say, hey, listen, I'm not a California law person, meaning we can set it up, we can track it, make sure it's right, keep you compliant. Your system can do a lot Your mobile app does a lot of that. That's why we work together so well. We're family now. So it's one of those things where there are certain times that I have no problem as a salesperson saying, hey, listen, you're going to want to speak with this person on this. But it does happen where it's like, I hear all the time, next year we're going to go after more of this type of work that comes with some of this red tape and compliance. And that's where it's like, it's the people that are getting out in front of it and say, Jim, I don't know how much. The owner told me we're going to go after more of this, or I am the owner of this business and I am going to bid more of these jobs. I don't know how many of them I'll get, but I just want to be ready. Those are the people we never have to have that tough conversation with, where I'm sitting there talking to them, explaining, well, hey, I know you just got nailed for this huge fine and you guys are out this, but hey, if you were with us, that wouldn't happen because look at this. Again, I'd rather help them before that happens, just like you. You know what I mean? I'd rather be there before. But for those folks, I just tell them, hey, this is something that once you have in place, it can't hurt you. Mobile app, always just going to save you time. Construction-specific service, whether I need all these reports or that, it's not going to hurt you. These are all, and I even say a payroll service is it's an insurance policy as well. You're making sure that we're all humans. You could have your payroll person who's done it for 20 or 30 years, and they're not going to intentionally take money from you or miss a federal tax deposit or something along those lines. Same as, hey, I'm hand keying in time. I have a bunch of union employees. Whoops, I forgot to enter time for Bob today. You may not have done it intentionally, but the ramifications, the things that come afterwards from unions, from government, state agencies, it's, hey, you got to pay us. We know it was a mistake. It's unfortunate, but these are things that we tell people, hey, there are things out there nowadays to help with those types of things in those construction solutions.
Establishing a powerful payroll tech stack just got easier thanks to Payroll for Construction, the construction-specific payroll service that seamlessly pairs with leading accounting software like Foundation, Sage, QuickBooks, and more. As you run payroll, automatically update your job costing and general ledger with labor data. Then, Payroll for Construction takes care of the payroll processing. Sync Payroll for Construction with your accounting software today.
So what are some of the things that you run into commonly that seem to be drivers for companies to say, okay, Uncle, I'm gonna solve this now? What are those triggers that seem to push them in your direction?
Sure. A lot of it is, again, some of those bad things that happen. Sometimes it is, hey, just too much on my plate. You know what I mean? That payroll person, as that company starts to grow, well, hey, I was the payroll person, I was doing payroll, I could do some billing. We went from 10 employees to 20 employees. For a lot of people, they're like, well, that's not that big of a company. That is, you have doubled. To think that person can then continue to, now again, as owners and people, it's like, hey, I wish I still paid the same price from, same thing for a gallon of milk today as I did that many years ago, 10, 15 years ago. It just doesn't happen. This stuff evolves, grows, things go up. So to think that person, I always make the joke, well, hey, do you pay that person double what you paid them last year when they were doing 10 employees? Well, no. Okay, I get it. I understand that. But the workload goes up and those things need to go up. So what I see people is workload just going way too much. We get to that point of owner, hey, we either got to get another body in here or we got to figure something out. So usually, and this too, Mike, these are usually all reactionary things. It's when it happens. You know what I mean? It's when your payroll person has 50 time cards on their desk and is ready to walk out because there's just too much on their plate that finally they talk to owner or owner says, hey, I'm doing this myself. I got to be out in the field more, watching jobs more. We got to get some automation here. But fact is, and that's just who we are as humans, just a lot of reactionary. You know what I mean? None of us are out there always working out a ton when we're in our teens and we're all, two kicks. But it's like, hey, we all get older and, gravity, life changes where it's like, hey, I probably, I went to the doc. Doc said, hey, you need to start running, working out, doing something. So I always tell people that are in those situations, like, glad you at least came and now you want to take a look at some of this stuff. So it's just too much work. Just they want a life, or again, it's that insurance blanket of, hey, the employee is responsible for entering their time and getting it to me. There's some accountability there. The payroll company, no matter what, if my payroll person goes on vacation, is out sick, up and leaves for whatever reason, I have that covered with this technology.
Nice. So what are some other things that you really tell companies they should pay specific attention to when looking to solve this challenge for payroll for construction specifically, like to move up from a QuickBooks or some other non-construction-esque type system to what your team offers?
Sure. So it lines up with you guys as well a bit here. So look, I always say construction. I'm a construction company. We do get calls. Hey, Jim, I found you online, or Jim, I'm looking to outsource payroll. Tell me what's going on. Meaning there's more to it. So if somebody comes and says, well, I just need you to pay my employees in taxes. Okay. You don't have any multi-state. You don't have any like certified payroll. You don't have any complex unions. You don't need job costing. That's different. That's not us. Meaning I would happily refer them to, hey, give this company or that company a call. They line up for you, even though, I would tell other construction companies, hey, here's why you want to go with us. It is those more complex things, multi-state, union, government, prevailing wage. And the same goes for you guys. If somebody picked up the phone and said, I don't care about tracking them by job or if they're really there or that, well, that doesn't line up. You know what I mean? It's like, so it's more, we're finding the most complex payroll out there, the people that have to follow these rules and the compliance. And again, it starts cutting out of profitability for ownership, because if you're not actually, all these reports, all this red tape, California, hey, union breaks and the tracking of that stuff. If you don't have things in place for that and are doing that manually, it puts you at a disadvantage as a company, because these other companies, again, they're running a tighter ship and they have these processes automated. So I just see people come to us when it's like, hey, help, what's wrong with payroll? And the reality is, the funny thing is, Mike, I also still take a couple of calls a week where I get on the phone with me and I say, what's going on with payroll? Okay, we use WorkMax to collect the data. Okay, that's a check. So far, you're ahead of most other people out there. We use Foundation. We use a construction-specific accounting system. Okay, you're getting those reports you need. And we use it. Sometimes it's not even my product, or sometimes they are. And it's just like, what's going on? Well, employees, entered it wrong or did this or that. And I'm just like, guys, I always make the joke. You're not going to like my answer here, but the reality is, if you want to get away from some of the mess that you're dealing with as a payroll person here, get out of construction. If that's not the answer, meaning, hey, if you're the owner of that business, shut it down, open something else up. Hey, if you're I can't do that, Jim, it's my husband or wife who owns the company, so I'm not going anywhere. Well, blame them, but there are elements to this that you can't clean up. It's the only type of payroll where you're tracking different locations, could be different states, different unions, different schedule of rates or collective bargaining agreements, different state for income tax. This isn't like us. We report to an office every day. Whether I'm on a phone call or I'm writing an email or doing this, I'm being paid this amount. There are just so many moving pieces, but short, to the people out there that think there's no better way to do this other than, your QuickBooks or your generic time capture system, there is. It's just, you got to look. And the problem I think that we face is there's just, I call it the double-edged sword, meaning, hey, when somebody's coming from one of my competitors, the good news is when I show what we have to offer, it clicks quickly. If they line up and they're a fit, which they don't get to our calendars usually, if they're not, if they are a fit, it is clear as day. However, the other side of that is that they've been burned by so many other people that, and these are the big name people, the household names that are like, hey, this company can't do it. How could this? So it is one of those things where there are a lot of people that have tried to use a mobile app. There are a lot of people that have tried to outsource payroll, and they've had a bad experience. So what I tell people is, hey, listen, just because, you got scored one time doesn't mean everybody, but it means next time around, do your homework more. Meaning, yeah, get in there, ask for references. You know what I mean? Not just, again, well, if I pass you 3 references that are construction companies, but you're a heavy union construction company in California, and these are all 3 non-union companies, great. They may love our product, but it doesn't apply to you. So you want to make sure that these people you're speaking with, do what you do.
So tell me this, what are some of the feedback items that you hear once a company's come to the sunny side of the things that you're offering that are unique or specific to, the P4C solution? What are those comments made about? What situations are they pleasantly surprised, or do they feel like, wow, I'm really glad that you've solved this for me now because it was a real headache before?
Sure. I mean, time savings, meaning that's the generic overview, but basically it is cutting down on mistakes, meaning you have technology that can control things by job. Probably the biggest thing that I see services struggle with goes back to, again, you hire Jim Welsh today. Jim Welsh, what city and state do you live in? Jim Welsh, we've agreed to pay you this much money. That's it. They control this stuff by the employee's record. Whereas, nope, depending on where you're working, what you're doing, I mean, I'm not even touching workers' compensation yet. I mean, shoot, you're a construction company and you guys are roofers. Well, your workers' comp rate, I'm sure, is a lot different when they're down on the ground driving or they're up. And depending on how high up that roof, what the pitch is, there are so many variables here where it's just, when people are like, wow, that's awesome, you can control that by job and do this and do that, it all boils down to, hey guys, this was originally built, like you guys, this was originally built and intended for this purpose from day one, not taken and said, well, hey, we could spin this down this avenue and we could technically make this work for industry X. That's what it boils down to. But it's certified payroll. My clients in California love the fact that, hey, they use your app. It controls all those rules. OT, correct breaks, keeping them compliant there, data syncing into our system. And then it doesn't matter to them whether they're running 20 employees or 50. We're paying them. We're getting them their checks. There's no extra paper printing, distributing. I mean, shoot, most of these folks can see this stuff online nowadays. And then their reports. Our clients, when I hear people say, oh my gosh, we can do 10 to 20% prevailing wage. And man, when we do that, when we get up to that 20%, we're feeling it. At least in the office with us, I tell them it wouldn't matter if one of your jobs or 100 of your jobs were prevailing wage, or you worked across one union or 100 unions. If you have the right system, it's as simple as, hey, click a button, upload the certified payroll file to the California DIR or LCP tracker, whoever, and they're done. So, I mean, point is that in construction, there's just a, and this is a direct result of, some of the bigger companies that are like, we'll make our app work for anybody, or these payroll companies. Well, we can make it work. There's this there's this thought out there that we're construction. We couldn't even consider using payroll or a mobile application. They just don't get it. And you're right, most don't, but if you really look and find the ones that are in the construction space, is going to trade shows, right? We're at trade shows all the time to let people know, hey, we're here, we exist, and there are products that were built from you from day one. They're just far and few between.
Yeah, and then, of course, one of the final points, and one that I never want to skip discussing is, and you've alluded to this a couple of times, the importance of a true integration between those systems so that you're not recreating and reinventing processes by different people within your team, right?
Oh, yeah. Yep. And that's one of those things where you got to bridge the gap a bit, connect field and office. Everybody's got their duties, their jobs, owner, make money, bid jobs, get jobs. But what people forget is that it all affects one another, meaning field employees write down time, you have to hand key it in. They write it down wrong, you have to fix it, So these pieces of software, getting people to buy into them to say, hey, this will help you out here, but immensely help me out here. You're going to get a correct paycheck every week. How does that sound? No more short at 8 hours or wrong this, wrong that. Again, it's hard to see that, but the integration part is key. And when you talk to companies, I always tell people, don't stop at the word integration. No, we integrate with them. Okay, there is, trust me, I'm in sales. And to leave it at that with no other explanation, it's like, okay, but you really want to explain. So for example, integrate. Okay, if I can export time and import it from system A to system B, okay, great. That's what you do. What? Trust me, I hear a lot of people out there using apps and they're still hand keying it into systems. Not sure why, but either way, it's like integration. You want a full talk back and forth as you're entering new employees and jobs and setting a budget of cost codes to a job. Why do I want to do that in my ERP, my payroll software, and then go do it in the application? And trust me, more as well as I do, Mike, more often than not, a lot of these apps, that's the way it works. It's a simple export time, import it in, but you're managing back and forth multiple systems. That is where you really got to look into that stuff. And that is where even us, for years, we've known that, hey, our products work really well together. Let's make this, because we want to make our clients' lives easier and happier, not just stop with that. But again, our focus is on nothing but complex construction payroll, and all the way from data gathering to processing to paying the employees, providing compliance reports, project management, forms, all that from start to finish. We just focus on construction.
Establishing a powerful payroll tech stack just got easier thanks to Payroll for Construction, the construction-specific payroll service that seamlessly pairs with leading accounting software like Foundation, Sage, QuickBooks, and more. As you run payroll, automatically update your job costing and general ledger with labor data. Then, Payroll for Construction takes care of the payroll processing. Sync Payroll for Construction with your accounting software today.
Are there any ROI numbers that you can share that you hear, companies moving from a incapable or incomplete system to something like you're offering?
It's tough, Mike. I don't. I love that you guys have your thing and it makes complete sense. You got the APA that can kind of back up some of that stuff. Whereas with us, it's hard. And that's where when I go through the sales process and somebody's like, how much time do you think is going to save me, Jim? I look at them and I say, hey, you got to get with your payroll person. Here's how we work start to finish. And it's just, if they line up from a fit standpoint, it's just there and apparent. You know what I mean? Meaning, it's never going to be, I think this will save us 5, 10, 15. No, we're talking companies, minimum, and depending on size, I would say hours a week to days a week, depending on the size of that company, what roles, what duties, and stuff like that and then again, it's just, there's all these little things that become tough too. It's like, you can't think about, oh, okay, I can see that I upload the certified. So that physical hand keying, I can eliminate and say, it was taking me 2 hours a week to do that. It's going to take me 2 minutes here. It's all the little things, though. I forgot to change his rate, or I forgot to put in the union roles. There are all these little teeny things that I tell people, take all those crumbs and build them up. And it turns into a lot. It's just hard to see. It's those big things of integration, costing, time collection, certified payroll, correct union calculations that they really see the time savings in.
Yeah, that makes perfect sense, which I think most companies, they're really trying to just recapture some of that lost time that's wasted and put that resource to work on something else important instead of physically keying data. That's what we hear most of the time, right?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, I always say that beginning part of payroll is probably what I see the most. But again, how we tie in is like, all right, great. You have this mobile app now. Now let's send that data somewhere viable, click a button, employees, cost codes and stuff going back in there. So it definitely, you want to go with, and this is what we've promoted, you've promoted many years, best of breed, but you got to make sure they talk to each other. So, perfect world, one place has the best everything, but as well as I do, it's like, hey, if this is the best payroll for me, and this is the best mobile app, and this is the best this, fine. You want to make sure that they talk together. And again, that integration to what level. That way, again, you're not fighting each other in different, business areas. Because again, you want what's best for the field. You want what's best for the office, and you want what's best for ownership. So that really digging in and finding those companies that's all they strive for as well. That's what we do with, Foundation, Payroll for Construction, WorkMax. Those are the things we do pretty well at.
Yeah, you want to make sure your customers walk away saying, my life is better because I'm utilizing these products and I've partnered with these technology partners, right?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. And the people that you're dealing with will tell you when it's not. Meaning, I have conversations where I'm like, hey, I don't know how well this will line up for you because you only do this once every few years. So, you know what I mean? Making sure that you're dealing with somebody that doesn't just want the sale, long-term relationship, because moving this stuff, changing this stuff isn't fun. I don't care. Changing mobile app providers, changing payroll providers, it is all very detailed and tangled stuff that affects the lives of everybody at the business, whether they're doing the payroll or not. That's how they get paid, and that's what keeps them coming to work. The more you have to change this stuff, the more frustrating, and the more chances for things to be, fall through the cracks. So absolutely, just make sure you know who you're talking to and working with.
Love it. Well, this has been a very insightful conversation. I've learned a few things, and I'm positive that our audience will have picked up some nuggets as well. Jim, what's the one thing you really hope people take away from this conversation today?
I would say we take it back to the beginning, meaning, look, you got to make the time, because if you're thinking about it, then things can be more streamlined. Meaning if it's there and you're finding yourself, oh my gosh, the collection of this time, the processing, once I'm done, I'm not done because I have all these reports I have to do. If you know it, you know it. Again, making time. Finding the right time for sure, but making the time to look at this stuff because, again, it's like changing home, car, insurance, and all this stuff. It's like, hey, it's not fun doing it and getting there, but the money savings, in this case, the time savings, the everything that comes there afterwards is well worth it. It's just getting there. So just making the time. But as we say, this was all about busy season, ramping up, getting ready for it. This is usually not for everybody, but a good time of year to say, hey, we got, these things take a couple months to get in place, depending on what you're getting, but we have the time now to have this before we really start ramping up mid-April. So that's why we like doing these types of conversations, podcasts this time of year, to just say, hey, what are you waiting for? Jump in, take a look, and then once you get it in place, life's easier.
Love it. Well, thank you. Great conversation. Have to have you back on down the road. We've appreciated having you on as a guest.
Yes, sir, Mike. Thank you so much as always, and looking forward to talking to you soon, and happy to come back on anytime.
All right. Thanks, Jim. See you.
Thank you for joining us for the Mobile Workforce Podcast by Foundation Software. To hear more episodes, visit us at workmax.com/Mobile Workforce Podcast, or subscribe to the Mobile Workforce Podcast on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, or your favorite podcast platform. And if you like the show, be sure to leave a 5-star review, share with your colleagues, and follow us on Instagram and TikTok at Mobile Workforce Podcast.